Hello everybody, this is Bill Murphy with MMORPG.com, and I'm here to talk to you today about the Elder Scrolls Online. That's right, one of the many little NDA lifts that happens every so often is happening today, and we're allowed to talk to you about content from level 1 to 15. So what I'm going to do today, though, instead of just droning on and on about specifics, that's what our actual previews on the site are for, I'm going to give you the good and the bad of what I've experienced so far, overlaid by this video content that I took myself in-game from those first 15 levels as a Khajiit in the Aldmeri Dominion. So, let's start with the bad, okay? These are just some things down a sort of bullet point view that I don't like about the game so far. Number one has to be the armor. It has a very painted on feel. It looks like it's just a texture over top of your guy's body, except for some shoulder pads, maybe some hip pads, and whatever helmet you happen to be wearing. And now I get that that's probably to limit the rendering power that is needed for large groups in AVA later on, but it still looks bad. We're talking about a game that's used to having a genre that's used to having fully rendered armor these days, and this just looks like a step back into 2004. Luckily, you can play in the first-person view and not have to look at yourself. And that was issue number one. Another issue that I have so far with Elder Scrolls is these instanced non-group quests that you can't team up on unless you're on separate steps. Now let me explain. There are a lot of missions in Elder Scrolls that are very story-oriented, and there's going to be times when you go inside of an instanced area out of the main overall map, and usually in a game like this, you'd be able to sort of bring your party members and your friends with you to help you on these missions. And most of the time in Elder Scrolls, you can do that. You can bring your friends with you. There is one case in which you can't, and that's when you're both on the same step of a mission. This is actually something we asked about, and it is an intended feature. They say they want the story to be cohesive or something like that. So I'm thinking to myself, why can't you bring a friend? Wouldn't you bring a friend if you needed trouble, you needed help beating something that was giving you trouble? That's what you would do in a world where you're like, hey man, I've died like 12 times on this giant monster. Can I get some help? You wouldn't be like, no, I've got this. I could do this myself. You would bring a friend. You can't do that here, and maybe it's a limitation of the sort of phasing architecture they use for some of the story quests. Maybe that's really what it's about, because, you know, they use phasing quite a bit, and you'll see people in the overworld, and even though you've progressed the story, maybe they haven't, and they see stuff that you don't see, and so forth. But it sucks. It kind of sucks. You can't really bring a friend to help you on a mission and complete it together. One of you has to complete it with someone else or by themselves before the other one can help you. So that sucks. Another thing that I want to mention is, you might have seen on Twitter, I've been playing this game quite a bit lately for this beta, and it's got a slow start to it. I want to get that out there right away. There's a very slow start to Elder Scrolls Online. As a hardcore MMO player, you come in here, you're going to think that it's going to be like any other MMO, and it's slow at first. It's slow to sort of catch on. But around level 10 or so, which can be anywhere between 5 and 10 hours of gameplay, suddenly this game just clicked for me. Like, I realized I was playing an Elder Scrolls game with all those quests and missions, and instead of focusing on like this progress and trying to get to the level cap or trying to complete this area and move on, what I should be focusing on is enjoying the adventure and enjoying the story. And as soon as that kind of clicked in my head, I had a lot more fun with Elder Scrolls Online. I realized that there was a lot of exploring to do and lots of little things to uncover, lore to pick up, and lots of ways to progress within the game that didn't involve just leveling and completing areas and moving on to the next. So those are some words of advice there. But I will say it's a slow start, and those of us who are used to maybe faster, attention-grabbing MMOs might not feel the same way with Elder Scrolls Online. And then, this is sort of a bad and a good. Combat is ups and downs when it comes to Elder Scrolls Online. Like all TES games, it's going to be debated whether or not it's good or fun or fluid or whatever. But my advice to you is to find a weapon you like within the game, because they all play differently, and go with it. There are no cooldowns. You're just limited by how much stamina and how much magicka you have for all your attacks. Magicka fuels your class skills, stamina is going to fuel your weapon skills, and then you'll have an ultimate ability too, which charges up as you fight well in combat. But there's no cooldown, so you can swing away, you can do heavy swings, and you can do light swings. You really got to find something that you like the flow of. I know that Gareth Harmer, he doesn't really enjoy the combat that much. Meanwhile, our own Rob Lashley, he actually digs it a lot with his dual-wielding knives. So maybe there's just a difference in how you like things or not. it's different. It's not the turn-based sort of World of Warcraft tab targeting combat. It's also not the very fast-paced click, click, click WildStar combat. It's more measured, and you have to block, and you have to dodge, and you have to hold down strong attacks when you're using a two-handed weapon for that kind of like really strong impact. And so that's something to keep in mind too. That combat, give yourself a trial on all weapons before you make your decision. Now, let's get to the good stuff, because that sounded negative. And I want to make sure that you know that I'm not being negative with Elder Scrolls Online. I actually really like the game. I wasn't sure I was going to at first, but the more I've played it, the more I've sort of dug into it, the more I realize that there's something very unique here. This is an Elder Scrolls game online. It has this huge interactive world. Now, it's not as interactive as, say, Skyrim. You can't just pick up everything in the world, but unlike most MMOs, a lot of stuff you're going to see in the world, like boxes and crates and bags and backpacks and corpses and everything like that, it's all lootable. You can get stuff that you can actually use for crafting from it. You can intimidate random merchants, and they'll give you a bag of stuff and say, please just leave me alone. And if you do that, they won't sell to you anymore, but maybe you'll get lucky and get like a blue weapon from it. So it's up to you whether you want to be the asshole or if you want to actually be nice. You're going to explore to find real off-the-road content. I know as MMO players we're used to breadcrumb quests leaving us from one hub to the next, but instead what you're going to want to do in Elder Scrolls is open up your map, find an area that doesn't have any points of interest uncovered, and just go over that way. Chances are you're going to find something, stumble upon something to do, just like you would in Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind or anything like that. There's also a lot of power in Elder Scrolls Online's crafting. Now, provisioning is up in the air still. We'll let Mike Bitton cover that one a little bit later on this week. But provisioning itself is still part of crafting. However, the really good parts are when you get to weapons, armor, and all the other stuff you can use. The items you make in Elder Scrolls, if you put the time to get the materials and you work together with your guild to get the materials, they're going to be powerful. They're going to be just as powerful as the stuff you find on mobs and the bosses in the game, and that's true. You can actually see in the stats how if you add the right components, you're going to make the best item you can, and it's going to stack right up there with something Joe Blow found on the boss of the Banished Cells. Okay? There's also a lot of progression freedom in Elder Scrolls. I mean, so much. I started the game with a direct goal in mind, and that's what I wanted to be: a dual-wielding, plate-wearing sorcerer who summoned a bunch of Daedric minions. And that's what I am. I have two poison daggers. I have my Clanfear running around with me. I can summon an archdemon, or not an archdemon, I can summon a giant storm, Daedra, whatever you want to call it. I have several spells. I have several dual weapon attacks. I can do whatever I want in this game, and if all of a sudden I decided, you know what, that was fun, I want to go down a different path, all I have to do is start collecting skill points and start using different weapons and start using different armor, and I will go down that different path. You'll actually gain levels in each thing you use. The only hard part is the actual skill points. You need to level to get skill points. You can do certain quests to get skill points, or you can find what they call sky shards. They're basically like scavenger hunt things. You'll know them because they're glowing and they have like this bright shaft of light going into the sky. But if you find 3 of them, you'll get a skill point, and they're littered throughout the world. So when Paul Sage said, yes, you can max out a couple skill lines and then continue to level and find more, even past level 50, he wasn't joking, because you're going to be able to do all 3 factions quests. When you finish your main factions quest, you can start another factions and go through that whole path. You can start the next one after that and go through that whole path. You find all these sky shards, you do all these quests, and you will have enough skill points to advance. Now, they are adding in a reroll or a respec. This is something they were against before, but it is getting added. I haven't seen it in the beta so far, but it's good to know that if you gimp yourself or you simply do not like the stuff you've chosen and you think you would like, I don't know, using a bow and wearing cloth all the time instead of using a two-handed sword and wearing heavy armor, all you'll have to do is respec. It'll probably cost you some in-game money or something like that, but at least you could do it. What else? Okay, how about the lore library? For those of you who love the Elder Scrolls lore, every book, everything you find that involves the lore in Elder Scrolls Online goes into your UI as like sort of a library collection of everything that you found in the game. So if you find a whole book, but you're right in the middle of a dungeon and nobody wants to wait for you to read it, it'll go to that lore library and you can read it another day. That's just a cool feature. The Elder Scrolls games are very much about the lore for the fans, not just about the freedom of exploration. And so if you really like the lore, if you really like the story, you'll be able to dig into it very deeply. And if you don't, ignore it. And then there's really something cool here, and that's that they've decided to do away with the mini-map, or they decided to do away with the mini-map and replace it with the compass only, just like you would see in Skyrim or Oblivion. You don't have a map anymore unless you pull out the map, and when you pull out the map, you literally see your character pull out a map. Anything you see on the map is basically going to show you some quest objectives, just like a little spot of where you can find something, but it's not going to give away the total thing. You might see some of the markings, like if you need to shut down a Daedric totem, you'll see where it is, but it's not going to tell you, go kill these things, and then show you exactly where they are. Because most of the quests you find in the game aren't about killing or collecting stuff. Most of them are very story-based, just like you would find in any Elder Scrolls game. And that's something that's impressed me a lot, because when we first played the game several months ago, all the way back in October of 2012, I think, there was still a lot of kill this, kill that quests. That seems to all be gone. Most of everything now is, even if it is go out there and kill these things for me, it's usually not the goal you have. You might have a bunch of spiders blocking your path through some cave, but you've got to fight those spiders, and that's part of the quest, but it's not going to check off a checklist and say, you've completed 10 of these, now turn around and come back. You actually have a goal to hit at the bottom of that cave. You have something you have to retrieve, you have someone you have to meet, something you have to discover, something you have to do rather than kill and collect. It's not really a part of Elder Scrolls Online at all, and that's refreshing. You'll see what I mean if you watch this video. And then, of course, let's see. What else can I talk about? No, that's it. Alright, folks, I said I wasn't going to ramble, and here I am prattling on for 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and there's only a few more minutes of footage. So why don't I let you go? Just watch this, maybe turn it on mute, you don't have to pay attention to me, and see whether or not you like the Elder Scrolls Online. Thanks so much for watching. This is Bill Murphy with MMORPG.com.
Damn it, Moromo! You coward! Statues? Restore them now!
I'll, of course.
Good. Now to make sure you don't teleport away.
Listen, you can't tell the Cannon Reeve. She'll kill me. I'm not joking. My nephew, Yander, went off to join the fighting and... Damn it, I just wanted to stop. It's not just the Daedra. It's the monoliths. I've studied them for years. Worked out how the magics pacify the beasts. But that's... Yes, the Flame Atronachs are essentially just raw Daedric energy given form. I summoned some, hulled them down, and poured them into the monoliths. That...
What? What just happened? He did what? Why would he do that? Mages. Fine, fine. Thank you for speaking with me.
Thank you. I heard what you said, and thank you. I never meant for anyone to get hurt, and the lesson here is clear. Daedra are never the answer. I'll never attempt this kind of ritual again. You probably hear this kind of thing all the time, but again... Thank you. I never meant for anyone to...